Tyler, wake up, it's Christmas time!
What? Did I sleep through November?
Well, no. It's still November.
Oh, thank goodness. Thought I missed the king of all autumnal feasts.
I've never heard Thanksgiving described like that.
Wait. If it's still November, then why are we talking about Christmas?
Because it's Christmas!
Oh, no. You're one of those people. Welcome back to Ball State's premier entertainment news show. I'm one of your seasonally correct hosts, Tyler Landis.
And I'm your jolly host, Anastasia Scott.
Who doesn't know the correct spacing of holidays?
Why are you so worked up? There is no correct spacing of holidays.
Yes, there is.
Listen, there are only 3 holidays. Pre-Christmas, Christmas, and post-Christmas.
Wait, isn't post-Christmas the same as pre-Christmas for next year?
No. Post-Christmas is when you still like the gifts you got last Christmas. Pre-Christmas is when you want new gifts.
I don't give a stuffed turkey's neck about Christmas. All I want is sweet potatoes and green bean casserole.
I'm gonna call Santa and get you on the naughty list. Hope you like cold.
Now I can cook my turkey with the fiery embers of your attitude. Just shut up about Christmas.
While we continue arguing, here is Nathan Richard with a beautiful boy review.
Every year, a drama comes along, mainly during Oscar season, that packs such an emotional punch on me that it leaves me a complete and emotional wreck. In 2015, it was Room. In 2016, it was Manchester by the Sea. Last year, it was Detroit. And this year, without a doubt, it is Beautiful Boy. Beautiful Boy is directed by Belgian filmmaker Felix van Groningen and stars Academy Award-nominated actors Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet. As a father and son, with the latter suffering a crippling addiction to crystal meth, and the former having to cope with his son's poor life decisions. As I said before, this movie wrecked me. As somebody who has had family and friends battle with addiction, this was truly a tough watch. Steve Carell gives a truly great performance, as well, and probably his best acting he's ever done. Though it's really Timothée Chalamet who gives a performance that should earn him an Oscar after being robbed of one this past year. His performance is so authentic and heartbreaking that at times it can be really hard to watch. Addiction can be a very touchy subject for many, as it's something that so many people are familiar with, but Beautiful Boy handles the topic extremely well and shows the harsh truths of addiction and how it can impact not just yourself, but your family and loved ones. Because of this, the film's pacing does feel extremely slow, but it's pretty clear that this is the intent of the director. As for issues, I felt the film was structurally messy in some areas, especially in the first act of the film, almost to the point where it was hard to follow. That aside, Beautiful Boy may be a tough watch for many, but in the end, it's one of the most important films of the year, and one that I think should be getting a lot more attention. I'm giving Beautiful Boy 4.5 stars out of 5. Until next time, I'm Nate Richard.
Thank you, Nathan, for that review about this beautiful boy.
So you're saying this is a documentary about you?
Sure am.
So you're saying you do meth?
Sure do. Wait a minute.
Do you have something to tell us, Tyler?
Look, I'm not saying I smoke meth, but I'm not saying this movie is about me because I'm a beautiful boy?
Sure, and while we get UPD to raid your house for drugs, here's Robert Segovia with a new John Bellion album review. Robert?
October 30th, 2014. I was in the locker room getting dressed and grabbing my gear for soccer practice. My bro Matt Joes was in the gym lobby and invited me to the Beautiful Mind Tour, which was making a stop in Chicago. I would get to see John Bellion alongside DJ Rhetoric, Black Keys, and the Beautiful Mind Band for the total of $12. The only issue was getting there. Doors open at 7. I had soccer from 3:30 to 5:30 and I needed to take the train back to my neighborhood, which would put me there around 6:15. Then I had to walk my dog, do the dishes, take out the trash, make dinner, and find a way out of dinner so I could beat the traffic. Also, my parents weren't too fond of me staying out too late in downtown Chicago. So I told them I would be helping out at the high school's lock-in, which was actually taking place a week later. We even got our shirts a month in advance, so I was gold, and so was the shirt. I devised a blueprint, carried out the deception, and it was time for the execution. I couldn't stop thinking about it the entire time I was doing soccer drills, which were only going to help our Bengals lose by 2 goals instead of 3. When I got home, my dog already relieved herself on the newspapers. Matt came to my place and helped me with chores. On his way over, he picked up some food for my parents. I called them to let them know I had to be at the lock-in. They heard my dog bark and they asked why I was at home, so I told them that the gymnasium doors opened at 7 and I stopped at home to make sure everything was done. They were pleasantly surprised with my maturity, thanked me for the trouble, and I left the door a free man. Flashback, I remember when I first found Bellion. I was on YouTube and I found a gem in the suggestions. It was Bellion's angelic cover of The Motto by Drake. Nothing like the original, it had different production to back up the singing. I continued down the late night YouTube marathon onto his 2013 mixtape, Translations Through Speakers. Check out Life, Dead Man Walking, and What Up Snow from that project. It wasn't soon after I followed his social media pages that he was set to release his second mixtape titled The Separation, which includes Jim Morrison, When the Lions Come, and Superman, The Gift and the Curse. I already knew this man was extremely unique, being one of the only people in music that can sing, rap, and produce, but he began posting to YouTube with clips of making his songs, and I was able to appreciate the small details and remember how each decision was made, how each part was created, and how each song came together. Between 2013 and 2014, he became one of my favorite artists. Fast forward, it was a brisk night in the Windy City. The streets around the venue were packed. Where we were standing, the venue wasn't in sight. I had my hands in my pockets and watched more people pile in behind me. A Bellion favorite, Jim Morrison, was sung from front to back as everyone chanted the chorus in unison. When we got inside, DJ Rhetoric played a lot of popular songs as an opening act, and then it was time for the main event. Bellion sounded incredible live. He even had a beat machine to keep the songs fresh. The night was a dream come true, except for getting cups of beer tossed from the balcony to the general admission. Luckily, I hadn't changed into my lock-in shirt, so I put it on and saved myself a talk when I got home. Bellion's popularity skyrocketed with the release of the third mixtape, The Definition, which included songs Run Wild and Luxury. He scored big, producing and writing the massive hit records Trumpets by Jason Derulo and The Monster by Eminem and Rihanna. His use of instruments to capture any atmosphere, lyrics that tell a story, and crossover appeal with a blend of hip-hop and pop is unrivaled. He can paint a picture like no other, and that was evident with the release of The Human Condition, which incorporated the artwork of David Lohaya to have an image accompany each song. Many agree that the album's music is reminiscent of Disney soundtracks. I'm still completely in love with the idea of Bellion scoring a future movie. But now, in 2018, John had the opportunity to capitalize on the success of The Human Condition, which catapulted him into the stardom with hit songs All Time Low, Guillotine, and Overwhelming. But the creativity on Glory Sound Prep will separate his most radio-friendly songs from anything else on the charts. Of course, he is a genius at making music that can blend different genres, but the way he does it on GSP is unique. Backing his singing and rapping combination with simple drum patterns and epic orchestras, Bellion didn't shy away from hiring anyone to help it make his dream come to life. Songs like Conversations with My Wife, JT, and The Internet will draw attention from the mainstream crowd, but you have to check out Let's Begin if you're into an all-out rap session from the likes of Bellion, RZA, and Black Keys. Check out Blue if you want a catchy and cute love song, and Adult Swim if you want to hear one of the best songs of 2018, a song that features beat switches with a radio tuner sound effect that highlights when you need a wake-up call, a flow that changes like the seasons, lyricism to get you through your life, and a message that will give you the power to do anything and everything. At Glory Sound Prep, Bellion is a teacher and class is in session. Listen to the words, don't sleep. Open the app where you listen to the music, find the album, and turn the volume all the way up. I'm Rob Segovia.
I'm so thankful for that review, Robert. Just like I'm thankful for many things in this Thanksgiving season.
So many thank yous.
Yeah, because that holiday is next, not Christmas.
The holly jolly Christmas spirit never dies.
Bah humbug.
This job is not for everyone.
Because of the hours?
Because the only co-workers are cadavers. I heard there were issues.
Yes, there were issues. but I'm much better now.
Welcome to the team.
You're the new girl.
Megan.
Well, I got a weird one for you. Her name is Hannah Grace, and her family was performing an exorcism or something on her.
Dad?
Something went wrong. And then she died in the middle of it.
It was the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Young Anna was nestled, all snug in her bed, not knowing tomorrow she'd meet the undead. How would she survive what this season would bring? Well, that's simple. She'd stab, she'd slash, and she'd sing.
What?
Kira, why am I different?
You are special, little brother.
You've got hands, so let's use them. Jump! Yes!
Out my way! I shouldn't let them pick on me like that. Wolves are supposed to be with other wolves.
He's not a wolf. I've seen the way you look at the village. Wildling, you are one of them.
And by my 97th point, Christmas music is good year-round.
No! God, no, please, God. No!
Are you quoting The Office right now? Because your life is like a sitcom. Nothing goes right for like 20 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes it gets wrapped up perfectly.
It's almost like this whole show is scripted. What?
Did you pull a Jim look? You're more of an Andy Bernard than Jim.
What? No, yeah, no, that's pretty accurate.
Speaking of sitcoms, Sierra Lewis is telling us about Martin. Take it away, Sierra.
Thanks, Anastasia. My favorite TV show is the American sitcom Martin. When they say 90s did it better, they were right. If you are looking for a good, stomach-aching laugh, Martin is the way to go. The show's main character, Martin Payne, is the boyfriend of Gina Waters. This show is based around the comedic relationship with Martin's friends, Tommy and Colt, and Gina's best friend, Pam. The show ran from 1992 to 1997 and still plays faithfully on MTV. Martin won 3 different types of NAACP awards and a People's Choice Award for the favorite new TV show. What made this show so funny to me was the many different characters Martin played, the feud between Martin and Pam, Bruh Man from the 5th floor, and many other witty moments the cast had together. My favorite characters Martin Lawrence played were Martin himself, of course, Shanae, Dragonfly Jones, Lil Roscoe, Jerome, and Elroy Preston. A must-see episode that I recommend all day, every day is Do You Remember the Time from Season 2, Episode 1. Basically, the episode is about how Martin wants to tell the story of how him and Gina met on his radio talk show, but all of the cast has different interpretations of how the night really went. In the end, the true story was told by Tommy. What made that in itself so funny was the fact that Tommy isn't even Martin or Gina, and he told the story the best. The best part about the show was the fact that each character had great chemistry with each other. Each episode may have had different funny plots, but the relationships with the characters grew. Martin and Gina eventually married, Tommy and Pam got together, and Cole found him a woman that matched his smarts. The show was so popular back then that they even had many guest celebrities on the show. If I can be completely honest, a lot of comedy today takes cussing or dirty references to make people laugh. But Martin had clean humor that I can still watch today, and it'll make me laugh just as much or even more. I mean, every great show is often remembered for its funny sayings that people can reference. For example, if you've heard, "You don't gotta go home, but you gotta get the hell out of here," then you're referencing Martin. Okay, And I mean, I'm also excited as well because there have been rumors that the cast is going to pick up a new season of the show, and I'm all here for it, baby. So if and when it actually comes out, nobody talk to me for a good month because I will be binge watching it at least 3 times. With that being said, this concludes my review on Martin. Back to you, Tyler.
Thank you, Sierra, for that great review.
Tyler, let's make gingerbread houses after this.
Oh, that is it. All right, I am sick of your cheerful, weirful, holly-jolly attitude. Get in the ring. We are settling this like a Chinese documentary. Andre?
Thanks, Tyler. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word documentary? People looking off to the screen with lower thirds, facts, and data, Michael Moore's pudgy face? It's fair to say documentaries have developed a stereotype prevalent, so prevalent, it birthed the entire genre of mockumentaries. The greatest downfall of the documentary stereotype is the perception that documentaries are facts dressed up to make a statement. We tend to forget that documentaries are stories first and foremost. Recently, I decided to give documentaries another try, and I picked out the one in Canopy called China Heavyweight, a film that premiered at the 2012 Sundance Film Festival and was nominated for the Grand Jury Prize for World Cinema Documentary category. China Heavyweight gives us a glimpse inside a world we don't know is there, and it's coexisting with our own. It tells the story of the boxing coach Ji Mozhang, a name I'm probably butchering, and his 2 students trying to reach boxing fame and glory in a country with no deep roots in boxing. So this documentary gives us a glimpse into a country that had previously banned boxing in the past for being too Western. Boxing in some rural provinces of China has now become a way out for kids in those areas to experience new things in life. The beginning of the film begins with Ji Mozhang recruiting kids to become boxers at a school in a rural county in China. The children at the beginning of the film are given 2 choices. Either they dedicate themselves to boxing for the rest of their life, or they do hard labor in the farms. The documentary focuses its attention on 2 of Ji's most prominent students, their hopes and aspirations to become champions in the ring. Ji Mozhang also embarks on his own journey of redemption to regain the glory of the good old days of his boxing prime. The most remarkable part of this documentary, I think, is that I kept forgetting it was a documentary. Not once throughout the piece did I see any interviews or lower thirds. This story was told like any other fictional scripted film, but the style of the directing just sort of subtly hinted at being a documentary, just sort of like continuously teetering between that line just to politely remind you that it is a documentary and it is real. So one of the most powerful things going for this piece is that it's all real. The stakes, the characters, their actions are all real. So when you watch the film with that thought in the back of your mind, you're that much more engaged. So when a character is about to lose it all, they might really lose it all. You experience the nerve and the tension along with them because we know that real life does not guarantee happy endings. If you're a Ball State student or anyone with free access to Canopy, go watch China Heavyweight. It's worth the trouble. In a nutshell, it's a good story. All right, that's my review. I'm Andre Guima. I like movies and books. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Andre. You're really the champion of the ring for reviews.
Look, Anastasia, I'm sorry about before. I knew Andre was talking about boxing and I got a little excited.
It's okay. The Christmas spirit is still in the air.
Oh, hush, Anastasia. Look, no time for arguing. It's time for a shameless plug. This week is Logan's show.
My show!
With him, Noah, Liz, and Abby.
Stay tuned after the break for Landon and Michael.
So, the movie that we're talking about today is this movie called Birthmarked. Now, one of us
Who?
actually liked the movie.
Me?
Don't get it.
You want to keep going, Noah?
Yeah, I'll keep going.
Better.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. One of the biggest complaints that I had with this movie was...
But I thought you liked the movie.
We've been over this.
The movie
I'm done
was
arguing
good.
with you.
We've been over this.
We've been over this.
Movie. My name's Noah Bull.
Flash cuts.
I like hot sauce.
Flash cuts.
Hey, buzzword.
I feel betrayed because this is the second time Liz and I have had to do this because you guys are like, we're just going to throw the words on purpose.
You know who I love? Chris Pine.
Pine? That's my favorite type of Christmas tree.
What other kind of Christmas trees are there?
Well, there are metal trees and plastic trees. Oh, and colorful Christmas trees. There are some with decorations already on them, but the king of...
King? Like Outlaw Kings? Landon Corbin, he's here. Landon?
Over the weekend, I decided to take a look at the new Netflix original movie, Outlaw King, directed by David Mackenzie, who you may recognize as the director of Hell or High Water. Outlaw King stars Chris Pine, Florence Pugh, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, and many more very talented actors and actresses. Upon discovering the movie, I did a little bit of research and found it was based off true events that actually occurred during the 14th century in Scotland. Robert the Bruce, played by Chris Pine, feels that Scotland should belong to a Scottish king rather than an English king, and after being titled an outlaw by the King Edward I, his loyal Scottish followers crowned him King of the Scots. Throughout the movie, Robert faces many struggles and losses on his way to victory. Now, I won't spoil the movie, even though it is history, but for those of you who do not know the history behind the movie, you will need to do a tad bit of research before watching. One thing I love is historical movies, and when I saw people comparing this film to Braveheart, I quickly opened up Netflix and started watching. It wasn't as great as it seemed though, and don't get me wrong, Chris Pine was fantastic. He portrayed Robert the Bruce almost spot on, but many moments throughout the film were very slow and not really progressive. These parts of the film could have been taken out of the final product altogether, and it would have flown so much better. That being said, there were also many points in the film where, scenes really jumped way too quickly from one setting to another, essentially skipping over many days. There were many parts of the story of Robert the Bruce that were cut out of the movie that were vital to his character progression. Creating such slow moments alongside massive leaps breaks the flow, and that's one of the biggest problems in the film, is the flow. And even though the movie was slow at times and too fast at others, it was kind of worth it to see the massive fight scenes. I will warn you, it is a bit gory, but the fights add so much tension to the film. You never know who's going to die and who will survive, and it kept me wanting to watch more. Now, the cinematography of the film was absolutely breathtaking. Scenes where both armies were lining up in the Scottish fields made the audience feel as though they were there. Almost every scene within the movie was shot with such immersion that you could feel the tension within the battles and the characters. All in all, I really did like this movie. Casting was fantastic and the cinematography was amazing, and it gave a better historical context on Scottish history, something that Braveheart lacked. But even through all these great things, the movie has way too many points where it would skip massive storylines and slow down during the most unprogressive scenes. There was a lot of work put into this film though, and I definitely recommend everyone to check it out. It is a bit lengthy, standing at over 2 hours, so be ready for that. In my opinion, I have to give Outlaw King a 6.5 out of 10. I'm Landon Corbin, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Landon, for that review.
One more.
Thank you, Landon, for that review.
If there was anyone I wanted to rule my kingdom, it'd be Chris Pine.
Too bad he's not the real Christmas king.
Who is?
Kris Kringle, St. Nick, Tim Allen.
All the boys I've ever loved.
What about Michael Smith?
Oh yeah, him too. Michael's actually here with a list of boys he's ever loved. Michael?
Chris Evans, Ryan Reynolds. Wait a second. I see Parker's completely misconstrued what my review's about. That's what I get for not being at the writers' meeting. Anyway, over the past few weeks, I've had some long flights, and I decided to take advantage of Netflix's download feature to watch some shows and movies. Unfortunately, I couldn't download some of the shows I wanted to watch, cough, cough, Narcos. So I took a chance on a few other movies. One of those was To All the Boys I've Loved Before. The movie is based off a book of the same name by Ginny Han. The movie follows the story of Lara Jean Covey, your average, shy high school teenager. She avoids parties, she often hangs out with her sisters on Friday and Saturday nights. She does do one thing that most high schoolers don't. When she feels an intense passion for a boy, she writes a love letter where she dishes out her innermost feelings and fantasies. She keeps these hidden in a box in a room as she wants no one to know about these letters. The story kicks off when one day at school, a former crush of hers, Peter, confronts her about the letter, causing her to faint, and she realizes that every letter got mailed, including the one to Josh, her older sister's ex-boyfriend. In a panic, she kisses Peter and hopes that it'll make Josh think she has no interest in him. A few days later, Peter approaches Lara Jean with a proposition. They pretend that they're in a relationship so Laura Jean doesn't have to explain herself to Josh and so that Peter can get back at his ex, Jen. Though through this fake relationship, both Laura Jean and Peter start to develop real feelings for each other, but Laura Jean refuses to acknowledge these feelings. While this film tends to be a normal teenage rom-com, it makes up for it with a truly relatable cast of characters that act and really actually feel like high schoolers. The cast does a fantastic job bringing the characters to life and showing issues that plague high schoolers in this day and age. I would recommend this movie, and if you enjoy it, there's talk of a possible sequel which would adapt the second book in the series, P.S. I Still Love You. That's all from me. I've been Michael Smith. Back to you, Anastasia.
I love that review, Michael. Thank you.
That list of boys reminded me to get my Christmas list together.
So you've finally come around to the holiday spirit?
Well, it's really for Black Friday.
Ah, Black Friday. The Christmas carnage, the bloodbath, the tears shedding, the lines trampled, the woeful customers. I love it.
Okay, calm down, all right? You don't seem to be in the holiday spirit anymore. It seems more like you're backtracking to Halloween.
We'll meet in the middle ground, Tyler.
Black Friday?
While we get our Christmas list ready, stay tuned for our final word.
Oh, come on. Princesses and cartoon characters barf.
Hey.
Whoa! Cool!
You're coming with us, kid.
Son of Ivan Drago, who infamously killed Apollo Creed, appeared today to issue a challenge to Adonis Creed.
Don't do this.
I ain't got a choice.
That's the same thing your father said, and he died right here in my hands.
Ah! Who is this mean fellow with his skin all green and his teeth all yellow?
Next, I'm promoting you. You will guide my sleigh tonight.
So by now, I'm sure you've all heard the tragic news that Mr. Superhero himself, Stan Lee, has passed away at the age of 95. We all knew this day would happen. We were all dreading its arrival, and we never thought it would happen so soon. But alas, it has happened and has left our hearts shattered. So in my weekly tradition, I have taken it upon myself to give Stan Lee the best fangirl I can possibly give. This one's for our childhoods. Now, I won't be covering any superhero-related subjects. I'll save that for Anastasia to cover. Instead, I'm going to tell you all about the life he lived beyond what you know him for. That being said, I loved all the content you have created, and I have to say thank you for making not only mine, but everyone's lives worth living. You are the true hero beyond any comic book hero, and you will forever be honored and missed. So, Stan Lee, where do I even begin? Well, let's start at the beginning. He was born in 1922 under the name of Stanley Martin Lieber, and grew up in Harlem and the Bronx. Stan Lee was an avid fan of the silver screen, and this love of storytelling he had would go on to influence his work in the future. His first big break in the comic book industry came from the form of a job at Timely Comics. His first day was the same day the first Captain America comic came out. He started out fetching coffee, so don't ever feel like fetching coffee won't get you anywhere. Soon, he would step up to editor, and from there, he would just keep rising up. However, sometime after Pearl Harbor, Stan enlisted in the United States Army and became a real-life hero. Bad times were coming, though. The comic book industry was going downhill fast, but Stan didn't stop pushing his work and his imagination from blooming. Timely Comics became a little-known company known as Marvel. Yeah, you might have heard of them. They're pretty important. From there, the revival of superheroes just went up. The Fantastic Four was the new hot item, and everyone was loving it. Stan wasn't about making those heroes coming from fictional places such as Gotham or Metropolis, but from New York. New York, yeah, that's a place that's real. And it's where most of his heroes call home, or at least a second home. Stan Lee wasn't very comfortable telling people he made comics for a living until he was around 40 years old, when he finally embraced the greatness that was creating these beautiful comics. Though, through this growing number of comic book popularity, though, Stan did grow a few enemies who wanted to take the ownership for his characters. But, you know, he won that battle. Now, it wasn't always good growing...
You're doing so well.
I know. Now, it wasn't always good growing... Now, it wasn't always good going. Oh, yeah, it is going. Okay. Now, it wasn't always good going in the industry. In fact, it usually wasn't. I mean, comic books were not as universally accepted to be read back then as they are now. But Stan kept on pushing and pushing, and then one day, the silver screen was calling his name. Now, some rough starts in the industry were not very uplifting, but he kept at it until the industry would be one day dominated by his creations and his wonderful cameos. Stan Lee has changed the world forever, and I'm not ready to see an in memory of Stan Lee plastered on the screen, but I'm forever happy that he never stopped pushing his dreams. And I know he was happy to see his creations brought to life for all of us. Your memory will carry on for the rest of time, and you will always be with us on the page, on the screen, and in our hearts. We love you, Stan Lee. We all do. And from all of us here at The Real Deal, Excelsior! Now, because we cannot just contain our love of Stan Lee to just one segment, Anastasia will keep the flame going on his life. Anastasia?
So to continue on where Tyler left off, Stan Lee left an undeniable impact on today's pop culture. Marvel Comics has released upwards of 36,000 comics, which inspired about 50 television series and 55 films. His stories have reached across the globe and created an international following that have inspired millions of people. Names like Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Black Widow, the Fantastic Four, Black Panther, and Spider-Man are common knowledge to people who don't really even care about superheroes. It's hard to believe Stan Lee started his comic book writing career being too embarrassed to put his real name on a Captain America comic. His works ignited an entire company that has produced 9,000 characters, each with their own struggles and stories that influence people to be who they are. He didn't care about what the status quo was and defied what comics were saying at the time. He went against the comic book code that censored what comics could and should not portray. Stan Lee decided to push against the flow, making his characters more human. They had real issues that they had to face and weren't the cookie-cutter perfect superhero. The first time he really pushed that boundary was when he released a Spider-Man comic depicting drug abuse, and from then on he continued to release comics depicting abuse, terrorism, racism, sexism, and many other issues. Stan Lee knew he had a great power, and with that came a great responsibility to have comics deal with real issues that his readers, especially the younger ones, needed to understand and learn to deal with. Marvel Comics showed readers, no matter the color of their skin, their sexuality, their gender identity, their looks, their disabilities, their illnesses, their religion, there is a hero like you, and they seem pretty super, so you are too. Thank you, Stan Lee, for inspiring generations to be themselves unabashedly. You'll be greatly missed.
Thanks, Anastasia, for that final word. If you want more from The Real Deal, check out our Facebook, Twitter, and website for all things entertainment. I've been your host, Tyler Landis.
And I'm Anastasia Scott. See you next time on The Real Deal.